Okay, and before I do the review, I just want to send some quick well wishes out to Jerry Lawler. Pretty scary situation last Monday, so let's hope he comes out of it alright. Anyway, no surrender. We started off with Jeff Hardy versus Samoa Joe, and this wasn't that dissimilar from their match on Impact, but I thought it was the better match of the two. And Joe was still selling the arm a lot, which did prevent them from shifting into high gear, but he did break out the suicide dive, which he doesn't do very often these days. And I like the finishing sequence a lot, with Joe taking the twist of fate and then suckering Hardy into the muscle buster, and Hardy trying the same submission he beat Joe with before, but Joe fighting out of it this time. The last 2 or 3 minutes were really nice. Good match. I was surprised that Magnus didn't get involved at all, though. But I guess I can't really comment on that without really knowing where they're going with him and Joe just yet. James Storm versus Bully Ray. I really didn't care for this one. It was very slow-paced. There was a lot of stalling at the beginning, like 5 or 6 minutes of stalling. And Bully Ray can make something like that entertaining for a while, but not when there's so much of it. I mean, this just felt like it went on too long. The 3 ref bumps got pretty ridiculous. That was 2 ref bumps too many. I think most of us called Bobby Roode showing up. That was fine, but the match itself just didn't do anything for me. Knockouts title match, Tessmacher versus Tara. And Tessmacher tried to remind the viewers of the story behind this in her promo beforehand, but this match really suffered from a lack of build-up. And this needed build-up to sell the story they were telling here. And technically, it was a good women's match. Definitely better than the first one. I didn't agree with the critics at all. I thought the match itself was just fine. And I liked how they showed that Tessmacher learned something this time with her countering out of the Widow's Peak. But when they got into the story of it, with them getting frustrated with each other and their tempers flaring, it just didn't feel like that had been earned yet, and I think that was the problem a lot of people had. I thought the work was mostly good, and it set up a rubber match nicely, but story-wise, it almost kind of fell flat. Through no fault of the women, just because of the lack of attention this angle got. If they could just give this more focus, they ought to get a better reaction at Bound for Glory next month, if that's where they're going with this. X Division title match, Zema Ion versus Sanjay Dutt. The knockout match suffered from a lack of build-up. This match suffered from no build-up. We haven't seen Ion in a month. We haven't seen Sanjay in even longer. There wasn't even a #1 contenders match. It was Sanjay getting the title shot this month just because. This was a we need to get the X Division champion on the show situation, and that's about it. Was it a good match? Yeah, it was great. But TNA obviously didn't give a crap about this feud, so there isn't a whole lot to say about it. Magnus versus Bob Van Dam. Oh man, this pissed me off. I thought the match was good, but the finish... Fucking hell. The finish killed this whole thing for me. I don't know what the hell to make of Van Dam anymore, I really don't. He's a lot like John Cena at this point, in that he's much more interesting when he loses. When he wins matches, it's just same old shit, different day. But at least when he jobs to someone, you can tell different types of stories with this character. But here it looks like they're trying to start an angle about the question of maybe he's washed up and can't cut it anymore, but then Van Dam beats the first guy who calls him on this, for the 3rd time in a row no less. So, rather than doing something different for a change that might have made this character somewhat compelling for the first time in a long time, you just threw that away so he could continue doing the same damn thing he's been doing for over 10 years.
You people are fools!
And Magnus, who I assume is going to face Samoa Joe at Bound for Glory, suddenly can't win a damn match to save his life, which isn't going to sell anyone on that rivalry. Magnus going over here would have been better for both characters, but instead, they just put Van Dam over again for no discernible reason that I can think of.
You're nothing but a selfish prick!
Tag title match, AJ and Angle versus the World Tag Team Champions of the World. Thumbs way up on this one. Even though they had to work around Kurt Angle's injury, they still had the best match of the night. A lot of great spots here, like the monkey flip into the Hurricane Rana. Kaz even brought back the flux capacitor, and the finish was hilarious with the Appletini in the eye. That was classic. It's amazing how much more fun this feud is now that Claire Lynch is gone. I don't necessarily like Daniels using Damien Sandow's catchphrase, but still great stuff here in my opinion.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
Jeff Hardy versus Bully Ray. This wasn't much of a match. Just an extended injury angle, and by the end of it they were just hitting their finishers over and over again for a while. It actually got pretty boring. There's really not much to say about the match, so I'll just skip ahead to the end. Jeff Hardy goes over, so he wins the Bound for Glory series. Now, what do I think about this? I think it makes sense. With the other guys in the Final Four, you could have them not win the tournament and they would still have something else to do in October. James Storm could fight Bobby Roode, Joe could fight Magnus, Bully Ray could be in that big War Games type of match with the Aces and Eights that was rumored to be happening, and that would make sense. But if Hardy didn't win the Bound for Glory series, he wouldn't really have anything else going on. So he wouldn't have been my first prediction, but if you think about it, it's not that surprising. This is probably being done just to draw for the pay-per-view. They've got an unproven first-time champion. I'm guessing they wanted to put him in there with someone who's got some name value and star power just for the sake of the buy rate. And I know a lot of people probably aren't happy about this. I don't blame them. I'm not thrilled about it either. But I'm not going to take too much of an issue with it. This time last year, I would have said, fuck this company. They never learn from their mistakes. They deserve to fail. But I said a while back, and I will admit to this, that if Hardy stayed clean, if he stayed out of trouble, if he proved that he'd really changed, that he could be a responsible employee, that he finally learned how to act like an adult, if he could do this for 1 year without fucking up, then maybe. I did say that. And you know what? It's been a year. And look, I have no great love for Jeff Hardy. You guys know that. I've never been a fan of his. I probably never will be. But I get it. My biggest gripe with the man was always that he was irresponsible, self-destructive, and you just couldn't depend on him not to fuck up. But by all accounts, he seems to have been trying really hard to be better since he came back. So I get it. There's still a lot of money in this guy. Reportedly, he's their biggest merchandise seller. Would I put the title on him at Bound for Glory? No, I wouldn't. But if they're really confident that they can trust him again, then I'm not going to make a big stink about this match. I'm really not. Though I would strongly caution company management to keep an eye on him at all times. For Christ's sake, don't give him enough rope to hang himself, because there's still one big question here. For years, Jeff Hardy has always found some way to sabotage himself whenever he's reached the mountaintop. If he's really cleaned up his act this time, good for him. But has he changed that much? I sure hope so, but only time will tell on that one. And I purposely saved this part until the end, because, damn it, if the champ couldn't go on last at the pay-per-view, then the champ was going to go on last in this review. Yes! Unfortunately, there isn't much to say. Aries had a fight with the Armbreaker. It was okay. Nothing great. The Armbreaker didn't bring much to the table. He was kind of boring, quite frankly. And honestly, this was another one that felt like it went on too long. Aries was still great, but ultimately one guy in a mask just isn't a compelling opponent unless you can put a face on him. At least Aries got the better of him before the rest of the Aces and Eights showed up. Then the locker room empties, and Hogan calls in all these cops to lock the place down. And then it gets unintentionally funny for a minute when Hogan is telling all these police officers how to do their jobs, telling them that they can beat the Aces and Eights when they find them, because apparently Hogan's permission is all it takes to make police brutality legal. Just roll with it.
This whole show is ridiculous!
And for the amount of time that they spent on this, it really felt like nothing new was accomplished. Getting police to guard the arena seems like something Hogan and or Sting should have done weeks, if not months ago. Why it didn't happen after that huge-ass brawl on Impact, I couldn't tell you. And the result was that this felt kind of awkward as a dramatic device because the progression just wasn't organic. So anyway, they locked down the whole place, and nothing else really happens after that, except for a whole lot more teasing that it's Bully Ray behind the Aces and Eights. What a joke. Don't they know yet that it's been you this whole time? What they should be asking is how you somehow managed to coordinate this latest attack by the Aces and Eights from the comfort of your own home. Diabolical. No Surrender was a mixed bag. Parts of it were really good, but lack of build-up hurt a lot of the matches. The Aces and Eights stuff didn't come off as well as it should have. The Bound for Glory series kind of ended with a whimper, and Jeff Hardy winning is going to be a really polarizing decision. I'm going to wait and see how it plays out, but I wouldn't say this was TNA's best pay-per-view effort recently. You know all that stuff I said about Jeff Hardy staying clean a minute ago? Well, forget all that. He's obviously on drugs again. Because that's the only thing that would possibly explain why anyone in their right mind would even consider taking their Bound for Glory title shot that it took them 3 months to win and putting it on the line in a match against Bully Ray, or anyone for that matter, for no reason at all when they have everything to lose and nothing to gain by doing so. What the fuck?
Yet again, I am standing before another ignoramus.
Now that we're officially on the road to Bound for Glory, TNA have a lot of ducks to get in a row over the next few weeks. Now, some of the card has already been set up, even if it hasn't been announced, but for maybe half of it, we really don't know which way they're going just yet. So it felt like a very strange week to have a wrestling-heavy show. I would think they'd want to get their storyline set up for the next month, and they did in some cases, but for a lot of the programs they've got going on, I'm still not sure what the game plan is. As a result, it doesn't really feel like they're approaching their biggest show of the year just yet, and that's a problem. The opening with Aries and Hardy was fine for an initial confrontation between those two, but as much as I'm a fan of the work Bully Ray has been doing, he didn't really belong in this segment. In fact, the whole angle with him on this show was really unnecessary. It made Hardy look like the biggest idiot who ever lived for putting his title shot up for grabs in a match when he didn't have to, without even making Bully Ray put something on the line if he lost, and nothing even came of it either. Hardy wins. He's still main eventing Bound for Glory, the status quo stays the same, so what was the point of all this? If it was about giving the fans a better match than the one that main evented No Surrender, okay. But with your biggest show of the year coming up next month, if something isn't absolutely necessary, then it's probably time better spent on something else. And surprisingly, I don't mean wrestling. We actually had a lot of wrestling on this show, and all the matches were good. I had no complaints as far as that goes, but I guess I'm just kind of struggling with whether or not this stuff was continuing what No Surrender set up, or just keeping things in a holding pattern. Zima Ion and Sanjay Dutt had a rematch. Ion wins again, clean, which I appreciate, and he did attack Sanjay's shoulder afterward, but Sanjay has lost clean to Ion twice in a row now. He doesn't have any grounds for another rematch. So what the hell are they going to do for Bound for Glory now? A triple threat with Kenny King would be my guess, but we haven't seen Kenny King since Hardcore Justice. I don't know where they're going with the X Division title feud or how they're going to set this up, but they've got some work to do on this one over the next month. On the tag team front, they did AJ vs. Kazarian and Daniels vs. Chavo. Both good matches. If the heels win, they don't have to defend their titles against these guys, but they both lost. So I guess we're getting a triple threat for the tag titles at Bound for Glory. That's fine. I don't really think Tex-Mex belong in a big spot like that just yet after only having 2 matches as a team, but there really aren't a lot of options right now, so what can you do? The Roode Storm stuff I liked a lot. Bobby Roode cuts a promo about how if he can't get a title shot against Aries, then he was going to make damn sure his former partner didn't get it either. Storm comes out, they fight, and it was great. But they brawled out of the arena, they cut to a commercial, and the fight finished off camera. Are you kidding me? Why are you cutting away from this? This is probably going to be your semi-main event next month. Don't cut away, stay on it for crap's sake. I really wish they'd spent more time on this. The Roode Storm feud hasn't been forgotten, but at the same time, they've barely interacted since Lockdown, and that rivalry has cooled off since then. The writers need to kind of stoke the fire here and remind people how much these guys hate each other and about the fact that nothing was really resolved between them. Now, the only real story advancement we got this week was with the Knockouts. Tara invites Tessmacher out to the ring to congratulate her on beating her at No Surrender, and she's like, the student beat the teacher, you deserve to be the champion, you're my best friend, you're my boo, and I'm so proud of you for proving all the doubters wrong. And it was pretty obvious where this was going. I think the announcers were the only ones surprised when Tara turned heel. And I'm a little torn on this one. It did what it needed to do, put heat on Tara, hopefully got people to rally behind Tessmacher, and it didn't do this badly, though it was kind of on the nose. And maybe it's just me, but I don't like these sudden heel turns. And it was the same thing with the Bobby Roode heel turn last year. I mean, yeah, they've been done in wrestling for years, but when your company has been trying to cultivate a reality-style approach to its production and its storylines, then stuff like this feels really awkward because, in reality, people don't behave this way. What Tara said was true. Her and Tessmacher were best friends for quite a while, and then she turns on her. Just like that. And I just don't buy it. I can believe that the title would come between these two friends, but not when it happens so suddenly. And that's why I've been saying that this angle suffered from a lack of build-up. This probably would have come off a lot better if there had been some foreshadowing here. But the development of the angle was so inconsistent, and now they've gotten to the crux of the whole thing, and it just didn't work for me. Ideally, this should have been a lot more complex. Like, Tara is happy for her friend, but at the same time she wants the title back, and she resents that this girl that she trained got one over on her, and there's insecurities bubbling up now, and Tara wants to prove that she's not washed up, that she's still the best female wrestler out there, and she doesn't like going down this road. She knows she's betraying their friendship, she's not happy about what she's doing, but it's just something that she feels like she has to do. There's a whole lot of messy emotions there, and it could have made for some really interesting character development if they'd taken the time to play around with all that. But it just feels like the writers kind of threw away an opportunity for some great storytelling, opting instead for the more traditional approach of Tara wants the title so she's evil now, and I just wasn't a fan of how this happened. I'm not saying it won't work. It got the highest rating of the show, so maybe I'm just full of shit here, but my point is that the angle didn't have to be so one-dimensional. It could have been a lot more dynamic than this. Hogan comes out, and he cuts an unintelligible promo about Jeff Hardy being an alien from another solar system or something. I don't know what he was talking about, but he addresses the Aces and Eights too, saying that the whole arena is locked up to prevent any further attacks, and again, this really seems like something he should have done months ago, but whatever. The Aces and Eights show up on the video screen and hint that Hogan may not have locked them out, but he may have locked them in. And then nothing happens for the rest of the night. The show eventually ends, they unlock the doors to let all the people out, so that threat amounted to nothing really, which was kind of an anticlimax. They're really at an impasse with this Aces and Eights thing right now. It peaked with that huge brawl a few weeks ago, and they progressed it to a certain point, but now it's like they're trying to go backwards. They're trying to be all mysterious and cryptic again, but that doesn't work anymore. We're past that point now. They should have turned to the next chapter in this thing and no surrender, and I think they tried to, but it really wasn't anything we hadn't seen already, and their strongest member kind of got cut off at the knees by a one-armed Austin Aries. And now they're threatening Hogan with more surprise attacks. Well, we've seen plenty of those by now. What else you got? There's an interesting segment backstage where all these members of the managerial staff are hashing out this threat. Dixie is there, Pritchard is there, D'Lo, Al Snow, the Hogans, and they're discussing the scope of this thing, about how Dixie and Brooke should have guards at all time. Again, why the fuck didn't they get guards weeks ago? I don't know.
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
So they're trying to decide whether to keep the place locked up or to unlock the doors and face the Aces and Eights head on. I really didn't know what to make of this. The performances were fine, it was well shot, but it seemed like they were talking an awful lot without really saying anything. I think they were leaning towards unlocking the place by the time this was over, but I don't see the point of either decision since the Aces and Eights have already proven that they can circumvent just about any security measures Hogan puts in place and that they're not afraid of a fight if it comes to that. So I'm not sure what was accomplished here other than them guessing that the Aces and Eights must have someone on the inside helping them, which pretty much everyone was calling months ago anyway.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
Hardy and Bully Ray with Jeff's BFG title shot on the line is the main event. They have the match that they probably just should have had at No Surrender. Hardy wins, nothing changes, so I'm kind of scratching my head trying to figure out why this was even done when they could have used the time given to Bully Ray to feature Austin Aries or something. And speaking of Aries, why didn't he come out at the end when Hardy was celebrating? Just have him walk out to the stage and have them do a stare down with Aries holding up the title. Why was he absent here? He really shouldn't have been. They need to do something to ratchet up the tension between these guys, even if they are both faces. You can call this a dream match all you want, and I'm certainly not going to argue that point. But the problem they've got now is that there are no issues between Aries and Hardy. There's no story, there's no feud that's been set up. They haven't interacted or had anything to do with each other until this show, which really shows that they're relying pretty heavily on Hardy's name value alone to sell this thing. And I know that part of the appeal is that it's the first ever match between these guys, but let's get them face to face more. Let's build some anticipation. I'm not saying give the match away early, but keeping them away from each other at this point is a mistake. If they're not at least addressing each other in every segment they appear in, there's something wrong.
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this!
I was underwhelmed by iMPACT this week. It wasn't bad, but it didn't do much for me either. I think the problem was that with Bound for Glory coming up, you expect them to hit the afterburners and really turn up the heat to the max on their feuds. But instead, a lot of things just felt like they were on autopilot. And the Aces and Eights thing has a lot to do with that. I really think they should have progressed this more than they have by now. And with Joseph Park waiting on this new piece of evidence he mentioned, hopefully that will happen next week.
Oh, shit. You're in trouble now. Joseph Park is onto you just like I am. He's going to expose you to the whole world, and it's going to be sweet.
It's not me. It's not me. Do you hear me? God damn it, it's not me!
Yes, it is.
How much longer are you going to do this?
As long as it takes for the truth to come out, you little twat. Now you go ahead, you keep denying it. You act as innocent as you want to. But I find it really funny how you keep trying to dump all the blame for the Aces and Eights onto someone else. You were the first one to accuse Jeff Jarrett based on nothing but speculation. Then you accused Sting. Now you're accusing Bully Ray. You curse the Aces and Eights when they attack people. You sympathize with their victims. And their long, long list of victims includes just about everyone at this point. Everyone, that is, except you. Interesting that they've never come after you, isn't it? Interesting that you always manage to be somewhere else when they attack and only show up after the fact. Now you might call that lucky, but I don't believe in luck.
And look at you now. I'm punching you in the face with cold hard facts. And you're not denying it anymore, are you? You're not even defending yourself like an innocent man would. You've got absolutely nothing to say. You see, people around here, they can accuse anyone they want. They can say it's Jeff Jarrett, James Storm, Bobby Roode, Bully Ray. Hell, some scrawny, ignorant little fuckwit out there can even claim to be the leader of the Aces and Eights himself. But not me. I'm too smart to fall for that. And I'm on to you.